Chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Mike Rogers, good morning to you. Gentlemen, thanks so much. I want your reactions. First of all, Richard, I'll start with you since you're here. The Deputy Transport Minister of Malaysia saying they believe from photographic evidence that what they've seen is from a Boeing 777. We also know there's only one 777 missing in the world. Can we just say then it's got to be MH370?
Here we have the great difference between the role that we play and the role that a government official plays. We can say, by every stretch of common sense,
it has to be it.
It has to be it. It's definition. It looks like a 777. But a government spokesman or a minister, as Mike Rogers will know, they have a greater onus and responsibility because they are going to give you this seal of confirmation. They're going to be the ones that say, yes, it definitely is.
And then, of course, there will be the Malaysian airline officials that will have to address the families. And again, we have to keep them at the center of all of this. They have to be at the forefront. Mike, I want to talk to you about this information from U.S. intelligence, this assessment. We know it's months old, suggesting that someone in the cockpit deliberately directed that plane to go off course. What do you make of it? Because I keep sort of like slicing over the words. It's an assessment, that it's months old, it wasn't intended for public use, that it wasn't any more detailed information. It was from some satellite data that we had already all had.
Well, remember, any time that an intelligence official or an investigator makes an assessment, they're trying to eliminate the possibilities, not come to a conclusion. So that assessment was based on probably more than just satellite information. It was probably information that they determined by interviews, the information that may have been found at the pilot's house. Remember the one pilot that had a simulator in his house? There was probably some similarities in that programming that would, when you lined it up with the satellites, would line up. And so they came to this conclusion that obviously they don't believe it was a physical problem with the airplane, but it was some human factor that changed the course of that airplane. But they can't come to the conclusion that it was terrorism.
But okay, we'll talk about terrorism in a sec, because I want to see if you guys both still feel like that could be on the table here. But why now? 500-plus days. We have talked about this repeatedly here on CNN. What is the benefit? What's the end game in releasing this report now?
Well, I would argue that they've again gotten to a place where they could eliminate other factors. And so when you're trying to narrow down what exactly happened, I think that they determined that this was the right time to do that. Of course, finding the wing or the portion of the airplane credibly important to that end, and I think they'll have that settled probably by early next week, if not earlier, on the fact that that was part of the airplane. But again, it's about taking options off the table to come to a conclusion.
Mike, it's Richard. I've got a question for you. When you read or hear about that, I take it literally. They're merely saying somebody deliberately flew the plane, and we've known that for a long time, the nature of the movements. Do you interpret that wording as being nefarious?
Well, I think that what you're finding is that they've made the determination to go off its route. That would be a serious event for a pilot on a commercial airline. And so I think what they're trying to say is we don't know if there were other signs of trouble, but the way I read the assessment, it told me that they said something was amiss in the cockpit. That's why they keep coming back to that cockpit, because one of those two pilots made the determination to take it off of its normal commercial route, take it off of autopilot, and make what we would all determine as odd corrections. It did not appear that the plane was in trouble looking for a place to land. It appeared something different from that, and that's why I think that assessment looks the way it does.
Let me give a little pushback. It's interesting. Phil Mudd, just a moment ago on our air, was talking about the fact that, look, these are intelligence guys. These are not aviation experts. So are they missing something? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Look, I've always been in the camp that says that leads towards the mechanical.
You still feel that way?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. But this is to Mike's point. I still feel this way because there's absolutely no evidence besides this circumstantial that the plane was flown deliberately in a particular off-route fashion. That therefore, everybody else goes 1 + 1 = 3. I say, well, no, hang on a second. 1 + 1 = 2 at the moment, and that's where we've got to remain. And that's why I mechanical.
And in a word, Mike, terrorism off the table or no for you?
I think you have to, well, you can't take it completely off the table. I think if you're going to isolate it, it looks more like the case where the pilot flew it into the side of the mountain than it does an act of deliberate terrorism. They would have found that information because you would have had to pre-plan it. I think they would have come to that conclusion already. So I think you can probably eliminate a deliberate act of terrorism, but you can't eliminate a deliberate act by the pilot to take the plane into the ocean.
Mike Rogers, Richard Quest, great conversation. Thank you so much. Of course, we'll have more.